Aztec sacrificial rituals were deeply intertwined with their religious beliefs and cosmology, aiming to maintain cosmic order and ensure prosperity. They believed that the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world. Thus, humans must reciprocate through ritual sacrifices to sustain the universe. Human sacrifices were often conducted on a large stone altar, known as the tzompantli, or skull rack, where the skulls of the sacrificed were displayed. The tzompantli served as a testament to the number of sacrifices made, and was considered a place of honor for those who died in this way. The Aztecs performed sacrificial rituals at various temples, but the most significant took place at the Templo Mayor, dedicated to the gods Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. This temple was the heart of Tenochtitlan, the Aztec capital, and was considered sacred ground where the gods could be appeased directly. The sacrificial victims were usually prisoners of war, slaves, or criminals, though sometimes common citizens or nobles were chosen. This practice was seen as a way to prevent potential enemies from returning to fight against the Aztecs, while also honoring the gods with worthy offerings. Sacrifices were not only human. Animals like eagles, jaguars, and snakes were also offered, often associated with specific deities or rituals. These animals were considered sacred, and their sacrifice was thought to appease certain gods, such as Quetzalcoatl, who was associated with the feathered serpent. The heart was considered the most precious offering, symbolizing life force and vitality, often extracted from the victim and offered to the sun god. After the heart was removed, it was placed in a bowl representing the sun, ensuring its light would continue to shine upon the earth. The Aztecs believed that the gods needed nourishment and energy from the blood and hearts of the sacrificed to continue their roles in the cosmos. This belief stemmed from their understanding of the cyclical nature of time and the need for constant renewal and balance. Sacrifices were often timed to coincide with important celestial events or religious festivals, such as the New Fire ceremony, marking the beginning of a new 52-year cycle. During these ceremonies, sacrifices were increased to ensure the gods were properly appeased and would grant the Aztecs another successful cycle. Some sacrifices involved decapitation, drowning, or being buried alive, depending on the specific deity being honored and the purpose of the ritual. Each method was believed to have different spiritual effects, with decapitation often associated with the god Siptotec, who represented spring and renewal. Rituals could last for several days and included music, dance, and feasting, reflecting both the solemnity and the celebratory aspects of the ceremony. These communal activities were meant to strengthen social bonds and reinforce the shared religious values among the Aztec people. The victims were often treated well prior to their sacrifice, dressed in fine clothing, and fed well to ensure they were pure and worthy offerings. This treatment was part of the ritual process designed to honor the victims and make their sacrifice more acceptable to the gods. Sacrificial rituals were not always violent. Some involved self-inflicted bloodletting by the priests or nobility, using obsidian blades or thorns. This form of sacrifice was seen as a personal offering, allowing the individual to directly contribute their own life force to the gods. The Aztecs believed that without sacrifices, the sun would stop moving across the sky, leading to the end of the world. This belief underscored the critical role of sacrifices in maintaining the natural order and preventing chaos and darkness from engulfing the world. The Spanish conquistadors, led by Hernán Cortés, were horrified by the scale and brutality of the sacrificial practices they witnessed. Their accounts helped shape the European perception of the Aztecs as barbaric, which has influenced historical interpretations of their culture ever since. Sacrifices were not only religious acts, but also served political purposes, such as solidifying alliances or demonstrating power over conquered peoples. By involving conquered peoples in sacrificial rituals, the Aztecs reinforced their dominance and integrated these groups into their empire. The Aztecs had a complex calendar system that dictated when and how sacrifices were to be performed, aligning with astronomical and seasonal cycles. This calendar, known as the Tonopouhualli, was used to determine auspicious dates for sacrifices, ensuring they coincided with significant celestial events. Contrary to popular belief, not all Aztecs participated in or approved of sacrificial practices, with some expressing dissent or seeking alternatives. This suggests that sacrificial rituals, while central to Aztec religion, were not universally accepted within their society, indicating a diversity of beliefs and opinions. Sacrifices were not always voluntary, but the Aztecs did believe that the victims would achieve a higher status in the afterlife as a result of their sacrifice. This belief provided a moral justification for the practice, framing it as an honor for the victim and a necessary duty to the gods. The Aztecs believed that the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world, and that human sacrifices were a way of repaying this debt. This reciprocal relationship between gods and humans underpinned the rationale for sacrificial rituals, emphasizing the interdependence of the divine and mortal realms. The sacrificial rituals were often accompanied by prayers, chants, and offerings of food and drink, creating a multisensory experience. This rich ceremonial context helped to immerse participants in the spiritual significance of the event, enhancing its emotional and religious impact. The Aztecs practiced a form of human sacrifice known as mitote, where victims were ritually danced to death, reflecting a belief in the transformative power of movement. This dance was believed to release the victim's life force in a way that would please the gods and contribute to the maintenance of cosmic order. Sacrifices were not limited to the living. The Aztecs also made offerings of the dead, including mummified bodies and bones, especially during the Festival of the Dead. These offerings were intended to honor the ancestors and seek their guidance and protection, reinforcing the connection between past and present. The Aztecs believed that the gods had 4 previous creations, each destroyed by cataclysms, and that the current world required constant nourishment to avoid a similar fate. This belief in the fragility of the current world order justified the need for regular sacrifices to appease the gods and prevent apocalyptic disasters. The sacrificial victims were often chosen based on physical resemblance to the deity being honored, reflecting a belief that this similarity enhanced the ritual's effectiveness. By selecting victims whose appearance mirrored that of the gods, the Aztecs aimed to create a symbolic union between the human and divine realms. The Aztecs had a concept of teotl, a term encompassing divinity, power, and essence, which they believed could be transferred through sacrifice. This transfer of teotl was crucial for maintaining the balance of the cosmos and ensuring the continued existence of the world and its inhabitants. The sacrificial rituals were not static but evolved over time, incorporating elements from conquered cultures and adapting to changing political and religious circumstances. This dynamism allowed the Aztecs to integrate diverse religious practices and beliefs, enriching their sacrificial traditions and expanding their religious repertoire. The Aztecs believed that the gods required sustenance to continue their eternal struggle against the forces of chaos, making sacrifices essential for the survival of the universe. This ongoing battle between order and chaos was a central theme in Aztec mythology, underscoring the perpetual nature of sacrificial ritual. The Spanish conquest disrupted the sacrificial rituals, leading to a decline in their frequency and intensity as the Aztec Empire crumbled. The arrival of the Spanish, along with the spread of Christianity, challenged the foundations of Aztec religious practices, leading to a gradual transformation of their sacrificial traditions. Despite the brutal nature of some sacrificial rituals, the Aztecs also practiced forms of sacrifice that emphasized purification, healing, and renewal. These gentler forms of sacrifice, such as bloodletting and fasting, highlighted the multifaceted nature of Aztec religious beliefs and practices. The Aztecs believed that the gods had created the world through a series of sacrifices, including the sun god Tonatiuh, who offered his own heart to set the sun in motion. This mythological narrative provided a theological foundation for sacrificial rituals, linking them to the very origins of the cosmos. The Aztecs used a variety of tools for sacrificial rituals, including obsidian knives, which were highly valued for their sharpness and symbolic significance. Obsidian was believed to have magical properties and was often used in rituals to cut away impurities and connect the physical world with the spiritual realm. The sacrificial rituals were not only a means of appeasing the gods, but also served as a form of communication, allowing the Aztecs to express their fears, hopes, and needs. Through these rituals, the Aztecs sought to engage in a dialogue with the divine, expressing gratitude, seeking forgiveness, or petitioning for assistance. The Aztecs believed that the gods could take on human form and participate in sacrificial rituals, sometimes even appearing as the sacrificial victims themselves. This belief in the gods' ability to manifest in the physical world underscored the blurred boundaries between the divine and the human in Aztec cosmology. The sacrificial rituals were often accompanied by elaborate costumes and masks, worn by priests and participants to represent the gods or supernatural beings. These costumes and masks were believed to channel the power of the gods, transforming the wearer into a vessel for divine energy and presence. The Aztecs believed that the gods had created the world through a series of sacrifices and that human sacrifices were a way of repaying this debt. This notion of reciprocal creation and repayment was a fundamental aspect of Aztec religious philosophy, shaping their views on morality, justice, and the human condition. The sacrificial rituals were not only a means of appeasing the gods, but also served as a form of entertainment for the elite who often attended these ceremonies. These public displays of sacrifice were spectacles that combined religious devotion with social status, providing a venue for the elite to demonstrate their piety and wealth. The Aztecs believed that the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world, and that human sacrifices were necessary to keep the world in balance. This belief in the cyclical nature of creation and destruction was reflected in their sacrificial practices, which aimed to restore harmony and prevent the world's collapse. The sacrificial rituals were often accompanied by music and dance, creating a festive atmosphere that contrasted with the violence of the sacrifices. This juxtaposition of joy and suffering was characteristic of Aztec religious ceremonies, highlighting the dual nature of life and the gods' capriciousness. The Aztecs believed that the gods had created the world through a series of sacrifices, and that human sacrifices were a continuation of this divine act. This belief in the continuity of creation and sacrifice was a cornerstone of Aztec theology, linking the human and divine realms through a shared history of self-sacrifice. The sacrificial rituals were not only a means of appeasing the gods, but also served as a form of social control, reinforcing the power of the ruling class. By controlling the sacrificial ceremonies, the elite could manipulate the population's religious beliefs and behaviors, ensuring their loyalty and obedience. The Aztecs believed that the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world, and that human sacrifices were necessary to maintain the gods' strength. This belief in the gods' dependency on human offerings was a driving force behind the Aztec sacrificial practices, emphasizing the importance of these rituals in sustaining the cosmic order. The sacrificial rituals were not only a means of appeasing the gods, but also served as a way of integrating conquered peoples into the Aztec Empire. By requiring sacrifices from conquered territories, the Aztecs could assert their dominance and ensure the loyalty of these regions, binding them together in a shared religious framework. The Aztecs believed that the gods had created the world through a series of sacrifices, and that human sacrifices were a way of honoring these divine acts. This belief in the sanctity of sacrifice was a key element of Aztec religious identity, defining their worldview and justifying their practices in the face of external criticism. The Aztecs believed that the gods had sacrificed themselves to create the world, and that human sacrifices were a way of ensuring the gods' continued existence. This belief in the gods' mortality and dependence on human offerings was a radical departure from many other ancient religions, highlighting the unique perspective of the Aztecs on the divine-human relationship. The sacrificial rituals were not only a means of appeasing the gods, but also served as a way of educating the populace about their religious and moral obligations. By participating in or observing these ceremonies, the Aztecs learned about their duties to the gods and to their community, reinforcing the values of sacrifice and service. By remembering and honoring their forebears through these ceremonies, the Aztecs could connect with their past and affirm their identity as a people with a rich and storied history.